So this poem is called Os Ki Boonde. Os is the dew, Boonde is drops. So this poem is about the dew drops. And the reason why this poem came into being is because our dear friend Jill, most of us here know Jill, she gave a journaling prompt in her own Facebook group, which was on lines of, when I see droplets on the leaves on trees, they remind me of. And the first thing that occurred to me was the dewdrops. And so I happened to write that they remind me of the dewdrops. And this is something that we write a lot about in Hindi poetry. And Jill said, "Oh, is there a poem that that you could share with me?" And I couldn't think of a poem because it's just one of those things from nature that feature in poems. And so, because I couldn't find a poem for her, I thought, well, why not create one? And so here it is. ओस की बूंदे, the dewdrops. रात की ठंडक, दिन की गर्मी के मध्य जन्म लेती ओस की बूंदे. रात की ठंडक, the coolness of the night. Again, I have noticed that when I write poem, I still draw upon my experience of living in the tropical climate. So it's the tropical climate that features in my poetry. रात की ठंडक, the coolness of the night. दिन की गर्मी, the heat of the day that follows. के मध्य, in between these two, जन्म लेती, are born, ओस की बूंदे, the dewdrops. So we are talking about the time at which the dewdrops are born, throughout the night, before the advent of the new day. Chandrika ki chhau niche, Chandrika, the moonlight, chhau, shadow. Under the shadow of the moonlight, andhere ki chadar ode, andhera, darkness, chadar, sheets, the bed linen. Under the shadow of the moonlight, andhere ki chadar ode, pulling over themselves the sheets of the darkness, because we are talking about the night. Vrakshon ki shakhon se lipti, vraksh, the trees, shakh, the branches, lipti, when you would hug somebody such that you are entwined with them. That's the expression we are talking about. So we are talking about how the dewdrops entwine with the branches of the trees in a snug embrace, hugging way, out of love. Patton par jhilmilati, they glisten on the leaves. Such are the dewdrops. So what I'm saying is these dewdrops, they, under the shadow of the moonlight, while pulling over themselves the sheets of the darkness, they entwine closely with the branches of trees and they glisten on the leaves. That's how the dewdrops are. Again, cultural reference here, Chand ko takti. Chand is moon, takna is to look at something or somebody wistfully. When you look at somebody and say, oh, it'll be really nice to get to know them, or it'll be really nice if I could have that thing. That wistfulness is what we are capturing here. Chand ko takti, while watching the moon, longing for it, that longingness, that wistfulness, that's what we are talking about. Chakor sang hasti. Now, chakor is a bird, and its scientific name is chukar partridge. In Indian culture, it is believed that this bird, chakur partridge, which is known as chakor in Hindi, is in love with the moon. And when we use this, when we make this reference in the poetry, we talk about how chakor would sit throughout the night and look at the moon wistfully, longing for it. In a romantic way, because it's in love with the moon. So it's a bird that is believed to be in love with the moon. So here we are saying Chand ko takti, while watching the moon wistfully and longing for it. Chakor sang hasti, while laughing with Chakor, the bird, who is in love with that moon. Sharmati si, blushing away, because here there's a romantic reference to the love between Chakor, the bird, and the moon. Shararat karti, indulging in playfulness. Os ki boonde, the dewdrops. So what I'm trying to say is the dewdrops, while they watch the moon, longing for it wistfully, while and laughing with Chakor, the bird, who is believed to be in love with moon, and it shies away, it blushes, and it indulges in playfulness. That's how the dewdrops are. स्पर्श से फूट जाती. स्पर्श, touch, फूटना, burst. When you touch them, they burst. सुबह पानी सी बह जाती. In the morning, they just flow away like water. सूरज के ताप से, सूरज, the sun, ताप, heat. With the heat of the sun, भाप बन उड़ जाती. भाप, vapors. They evaporate as vapors. That's how the dewdrops are. So स्पर्श से फूट जाती, सुबह पानी सी बह जाती, सूरज के ताप से भाप बन उड़ जाती, ओस की बूंदे. They burst when touched. They flow away like water in the morning. With the heat of the sun, they evaporate in the form of vapors. That's how the dewdrops are. Prati raat janm leti. Now again making reference to the lifespan of the dewdrops. Prati raat janm leti. They are born every night. Chand ghante hi jeevit rehti. They live only for a few hours, just for a few hours. That's what their lifespan is. किंतु, but, कविताओं, कहानियों और गजलों में अमर हो जाती. कविताएं, poems, kahaniya, stories. Ghazal, a very special kind of poem, which is heavy on deep poetry. So it's not the kind of frivolous poetry or playful poetry that we can indulge in. Is that kind of deep, soul-touching poetry. That's a form of poem. And it has its origin in the Arabic poetry. So a lot of Sufi saints and people from the Arabic world, that's where this kind of poetry originated. So here we are saying, Prati raat janm leti, they are born every night. Chand ghante hi jeevit rehti. They survive, they live only for a few hours. But in poems and stories and ghazals, they become immortal. That's how the dewdrops are. Again, a cultural reference in the next verse, because in India, especially in Hinduism, we believe that everything that's born dies, everything that comes into being merges back into the source, whatever that means to you. And so life and death, they are two faces of the same coin. And this is a very core belief and philosophy with which we are expected to live and to implement. And that is why it is believed that just in a flip of second, life can change and everything can perish. And hence the invitation to not get attached to things and people. So that's the reference here. Jivan ki nashwarta, the perishable nature of life. Astitva ki kshan bhangurta, astitva, the identities that we glean throughout our lives. Shan bhangurta, shan, 1 second, bhangurta, getting depleted, getting destroyed in one single second. When we say in a split of second, that's what I'm referring to. Ka bodh karati, that's what they enlighten us about. Din pratidin, day after day. Os ki boonde, the dewdrops. So what I'm saying here is the dewdrops, they enlighten us about the perishable nature of life and how the identities that we glean and the being that we have created for ourselves, or the being that we are, they can get destroyed in a split second. And that's the big enlightenment they gift us day after day. That's what we learn from the dewdrops, and we learn them. We get this lesson from them day after day, because, well, they die every day and they are reborn every day. Alp ayu ki niyati, with the fate of destiny, with the fate or destiny of a short life, because they only survive for a few hours. Alp ayu ki niyati, short life destiny. Ussang judi bhiti. And when somebody or something is short-lived, there's a certain fear that can be attached to it. So I'm referring to that fear. With the fate or destiny of a short life, and with the fear attached to that fate of being short-lived, ke bandhan ke pare, beyond the perimeters of that fate, har raat sajeev hoti, every night they come alive, os ki boonde, the dewdrops. So what I'm saying is the dewdrops, which or who have the destiny or fate of a short life, and while they embrace the fear attached to that fate, that they're going to die in a few hours, beyond the perimeters of that fear, they come alive every single night. Such are the dewdrops. प्यासे पंछी को, the thirsty bird, थके पथिक को, थका, tired, पथिक, traveler, especially a person who walks on foot. प्यासे पंछी को, the thirsty bird, थके पथिक को, the tired traveler, a person who's walking on foot. स्पर्श भर से, स्पर्श is touch. स्पर्श भर से, just with the mere touch. तृप्त कर जाती, तृप्त is satiating somebody. Os ki boonde, the dewdrops. So what I'm saying here is the dewdrops, just by their mere touch, they would satiate a thirsty bird or a tired traveler who has been walking for a long time on foot. Suryodaya ki ghadi, Surya, the sun, Uday, rising. The moment when the sun rises in the dawn, दिखती मोतियों की लड़ी, मोती pearls, लड़ी, string of pearls. When the sun rises, they shine like a string of pearls when the light falls on them. Kar bande shat shat. Now kar is hands. When we fold our hands in humility and reverence, that's what is being referred to here. Kar bande shat shat. Shat shat is hundreds and hundreds of time. Surya ka abhinandan karti. Now we have to understand that the dewdrops come alive during the night, and when the sun comes out, they die. So we are saying that they welcome the sun and then they merge back into the source. That's the feeling I'm trying to capture here. So Suryodaya ki ghadi, when the sun rises, dikti motiyon ki ladi, they shine like a string of pearls. Kar bandhe, by folding their hands, shat shat, hundreds and hundreds of time. Surya ka abhinandan karti. Surya is sun, abhinandan is welcoming somebody or something, welcoming, greeting, celebrating from a place of reverence. So it's not hi kind of greeting, but greeting somebody and celebrating them from a place of reverence, the kind of reverence you would have towards the Almighty or your Creator. In our culture, that is shown towards the parents and the teachers as well, because they are the people who create us into who we are. So that's what the dewdrops are doing. Suryodaya ki ghadi, when the sun rises, dikti motiyon ki ladi, they shine like a string of pearls. Kar bandhe shat shat. By folding their hands hundreds and hundreds of times, Surya ka abhinandan karti, they greet the sun. Os ki boonde, that's how the dew drops are.